Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a sports show with some Southern and Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Cher Roser. Today we have the unfortunate pleasure of talking about Week 8 in college football and Week 7 in the NFL. LSU lost, the Saints lost, ULM lost, UL lost, Tulane won. We're going to go through all that. Let's get into it. Jared, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Unfortunate pleasure was quite a phrase to start this with. Was that from those reviews on dating sites that we talked about before of your exes? No.
About me? Yeah, probably. Probably a lot. I'm a lot. Let's get into this. LSU loses to Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt 31-24. The only thing that I enjoyed about that game was when they showed Diego Pavia's mom. So that was pretty much it. LSU, I don't know what to even say right now. They're the inability to get in a gap that Diego Pavia was going to run for 20 some yards was frustrating is just the first term that comes to my head, but there are a lot more things that I'd like to say about it, but I don't have time to edit enough for the curse jar for me to be able to do that. It was rough to watch. I don't think the defense played well. I mean, Caden Durham had this beautiful long 51-yard run, and he had 59 yards on the day. I don't. Where does this Tigers team go from here, facing the number 3 team in the country coming into town this weekend, and their schedule that is about to ramp up in a very serious way? What do the Tigers do from here coming out of this loss? Because this was a game I don't think that they could lose. I thought that they should have come in and taken care of business, and now the path to the college football playoff looks very, very steep uphill battle type stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of multiple things can be true at one time type dynamics to this game, because I think what's really important to remember as everyone melts down entirely around the state of Louisiana this week is that Vanderbilt's a really solid team.
Yes,
and so
1,000%.
This isn't losing to Vanderbilt a decade ago or whatever the case may be. Like, there's a lot of credit that deserves to go to the Commodores and to Diego Pavia in particular. And they played a really good football team. I mean, they played a really good football game. And so LSU, you know, we knew when we talked about it last week going in, it was not going to be a cakewalk. It was going to be a battle, and they had to play well. And they didn't, quite frankly. LSU mistakes on both sides of the ball. You talk about the frustration of open lanes on critical downs to Pavia to go, in multiple cases, run and convert, third and longs or fourth downs. A couple plays where he was able to pass and find guys for big gains on those plays as well. And so they end up 6 for 13 on the day on third down, plus 2 for 3 on critical fourth downs. And at the same time,
just some drops too, hitting the ball, hitting them in the hands and just dropping it on critical downs, like you said. Sorry to
on offense, you don't protect Garrett Nussmeier all day. He's a guy that we've talked about has been banged up this season, has continued to show some flashes of trying to get back to closer to what we saw from him last season, but it is clearly it's been a battle for him health-wise, and he's getting, whether it be on a couple of sacks or some hard-hitting hurries, he's getting rocked far more often than you want to see him getting, picked up, peeled off the turf. And so the pass protection was a struggle. When he gets the ball out, you have at least 2 drops in critical situations, including a third down early that killed a drive, and you have to settle for a field goal and or a second or third down, whatever it was. They're behind the chains. It ends up forcing them to settle for a field goal. Same thing late on one of those opportunities where you're down 7 and you've got to get something going, and you have a third down conversion in the receiver's arms, and he lets it go.
Yeah, that was rough.
On top of what you mentioned, talking to folks as I was leaving the Tulane game and folks were catching up on LSU, they were saying, they averaged 5 yards a carry running, so maybe it wasn't that bad. It was. Other than that Durham run, it was
that
really
was
rough.
The lone thing that saved it was that Durham run.
And then after the Durham run, you have, just as there were in some other critical situations, a penalty stalls you a little bit, pushes you back from a 1st and goal on the 1. And so suddenly you're settling for a field goal again. And it's been an issue for this Tigers team all season long, where instead of being able to finish drives, they're having to settle for 3. And that put them in a hole in this game, and one that they at the end couldn't get out of when they finally got stops, which I thought we'd see more stops during the course of this game by the LSU defense. And they finally came late, and then you couldn't finish getting over the hump offensively.
They looked unprepared. Like, to just be honest, they looked like an unprepared football. They looked like it was a shock to them that Diego Pavia was going to run. Like, he's not a pocket passer. There were so many times that the gap, they just didn't keep their gap integrity, and he just ran for the 1st down or more, or 2 touchdowns. It was super frustrating. And I personally put it more on the coaching staff than some of the players. It felt like they didn't have the right game plan in place, or didn't execute the game plan that they had going into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a situation. This is a situation where there's going to be some blame to go around to all levels, and I think sometimes you look at and say a preparation dynamic. Sometimes, there's just maybe a lapse of focus in a moment where you get a little. It's very easy to get a little bit out of position, and in a game against a good team that's going to execute well, that get magnified really quickly. And I think that happened in some spots, and also against a guy like Pavia, I think sometimes it's tough to fully grasp kind of, some of what a guy like that brings to the table until you're actually in it. And suddenly you misjudge of, oh man, he's got a little bit more juice there than I maybe saw on film. It's a little bit of a different beast to try and corral. And you saw a couple plays where he was able to just outrun guys, including, I mean, if you're able to beat Harold Perkins in a foot race to the outside as a quarterback, then that's pretty impressive. And that's tough to fully prepare for. And Pavia showed some of what has made him such a special player at every level. He's had stops at along the way, but certainly Vanderbilt the past couple of years.
Well, it doesn't get any easier this week with Marcel Reed and Texas A&M coming to town. What does LSU do? What does this, because I just felt like if I'm Texas A&M, I'm going to just watch this game and be like, that.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do to beat this Tigers team. And it's going to be a lot tougher in Tiger Stadium on Saturday night, but it's doable. And I think this LSU team, for what we thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year, I feel like just for whether it be with injuries or whatever, has just, I don't know if it's the weight or the pressure of the expectations, but that is what LSU football is. They have not lived up to it. Defense has this game outstanding, but I feel like by this point of the season, we're raising more questions about this LSU team than we were coming into the season. There's stuff that's just coming out, whether it's, we obviously had questions about the rushing and the defense, but Nussmeier's health, the offensive line, all those things it just feel like that is coming in droves right now. So I'm wondering how this team responds to that in a game that honestly, I think LSU can beat Texas A&M. And if they do, everything is still right in front of them. I mean, they still can make the playoffs. They still can have a shot at a really good season, but some of this stuff needs to get fixed.
Yeah, no doubt. And coming into this season, I had expectations the defense would be much improved. And my biggest question mark was how quickly could this offensive line come together? And thus far, it's been a huge problem for them, both in terms of setting the table for a run game and in terms of protecting Garrett Nussmeier. And then when you factor in the injury dynamics for Nuss and for other members of that team, including, we find out Monday, Tyree Adams, who was knocked out of that game at left tackle. He's going to be out. It sounds like multiple games. Certainly is going to be out this weekend against Texas A&M. And so some of those things snowball and further add to the question mark areas that we looked at going into the season. Drops feel like every year or most years, other than, obviously exceptions like that national championship year and whatnot, but drops have been kind of a problem for LSU, more so than you would expect from a team that has had really good wide receivers. And this year is a really intriguing wide receiver group, but they have some of those lapses in spots. And so it's been frustrating. It has certainly been disappointing of the expectations for this team. There are ways in which, the areas that have hurt them haven't been surprising, though. And now you go into the rest of this stretch run, and it is going to be really interesting to see how they bounce back. Historically, in the first few years under Brian Kelly, they have had a way of bouncing back when you're about ready to give up on them late in the season. After a couple of losses, they come out and they play better in some of these games in back half of October and in November, and they're still able to finish as a 10-win team or a 9-win team one year. And I do come out of this Vanderbilt game thinking that as frustrating as Saturday was and as flawed of a team as LSU certainly is, that they are still capable of winning big games in an SEC, where that's sort of the case for a lot of these teams. Is they're not world beaters. They're capable of being beaten on a given Saturday, and they have their own issues. Marcel Reed brings a lot to the table, but is far from a perfect young quarterback and can be kind of coaxed into some miscues for sure. And so you look now and circle this week in particular for this LSU football team, and then for us on the outside, that Alabama trip and that Oklahoma trip is kind of the three marquee games the rest of the way. And, hope you don't have a slip up against Arkansas as well in November. But I think they are capable on the right day of beating all of those teams. I don't expect them to do so. Alabama and Oklahoma look really tough.
Yeah.
And A&M we're going to talk a lot more about later this week. But I won't be surprised if they, only if they can turn it around and win these games. I certainly won't be surprised if they end up only dropping one more the rest of the way, and you end up with a situation where a 3-loss SEC team could potentially make the field this year. But there's a lot of football left ahead for both this LSU team and for teams around the country to see how this picture all sorts out. But the biggest thing is just not letting this team get as down coming out of Vanderbilt as the fan base right now clearly is, and understandably to a degree.
So LSU loses to Alabama and Oklahoma. How hot is Brian Kelly's seat?
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, if you're saying
it's not great, not great, Totten.
In this situation, you're saying they beat A&M, but then lose both those games in November on the road, which is quite possible. They've been far better at home than on the road in terms of just win-loss outcomes.
Yeah, because we can throw that Clemson loss out now because they're booty. So
yeah, it will be hot. It's particularly from the fan base side. Right now, I know there's a lot of frustration from the fan base. I don't think like a big move is imminent per se, but there's a lot of this season left to go, and we'll see how some things develop. But I think at that point you also look at, how do they play the rest of the way, and how do they play in those games? I mean, are they battling and end up an 8-4 team that dropped, a couple of close games, maybe 4 1-score games to really good SEC teams on the road, and maybe 3 of those teams end up making the playoffs or something like that. And so it gets kind of tough to judge without the specifics. But I know right now there's a ton of frustration, and it's getting louder and louder, and it's going to be interesting to see, what's far more important than what Twitter is saying after a loss is what's being said in the locker room and around the facility. And so how those guys respond right now is going to be critical for this team this season, as well as just kind of getting a sense of where the Brian Kelly era of LSU football is as we kind of near its midway part of that long contract. Because as much as we talk about hot seat, there's also a lot of financial components that go into that, and figuring out, before you make a move, how viable it is monetarily.
For sure. Absolutely. We could go on about this for the entire episode, but let's move on to the rest of these games that we picked from our PODnas Pick 7 last week. Next up, Tulane beats Army, the lone. I don't know. Did Louisiana Tech play this week, or were they off?
Louisiana Tech was off this weekend.
I was going to say the lone Louisiana FBS winning school. Tulane, Jake Retzlaff, 2 touchdowns, final 2 minutes to give Tulane a comeback win. Or not a comeback. Yeah, a comeback win.
Yeah, they were down
comeback win.
17-10 with 2 minutes left and scored 2 late touchdowns.
And I kind of everything when you were talking about how 2 things can be true. 2 things were kind of true. Army dominated the ground, which they do all the time. Cale Helms had 155 yards and 39 carries, with the longest being 16 yards. So it's not like he was busting off a bunch of runs like it was NCAA football. He was just pounding the rock. But this Tulane team stayed resilient. They came back to win. You were there. How was that? How was the atmosphere down in Ullman for this game, for this comeback win?
Yeah, it was a little, I mean, in terms of fan turnout, it was a little bit more quiet than I had anticipated, because I had circled this game as a really big, pivotal American Athletic Conference game for Tulane to get through, a rematch of last year's conference championship game, all those things. And I'd been there for some early games against some of the Power 4 opponents where there had been a really good turnout, and it was packed early in the morning and loud. The fans that were there were really into it, and there was a lot of, good energy to it, and certainly excitement down the stretch when they're able to pull that thing out. But at least starting the day, I was a little bit surprised, just because I guess I had built this up as a really big game with big expectations for me for the turnout. But a great game by Tulane, and they get through that big pivotal American Athletic Conference game and have everything in front of themselves now, it appears, to continue to try and compete for a playoff spot potentially. Coach Summerall said, no one's going to question y'all's toughness. It may not be pretty, but y'all just figure it out somehow. And it's aging him rapidly. He's looking like that Matt Damon gif from Saving Private Ryan or whatever, but he's loving this team. As many near heart attack moments as they may be giving him at times with some of the frustration along the way, they find their way, and they certainly did that. You mentioned Jake. He had some huge plays down the stretch. A 4th down touchdown to Bryce Bohannon, where he's kind of drifting to his left. Pressure ends up, approaching in his face really quickly. He plants, fires, has Bryce Bohannon in the end zone, ties the game with the extra point, and then Shaz Preston with the focus on the deflected pass at the 5-yard line to end up corralling that thing. Shout out, as we record on Monday, happy birthday, Shaz, former bootlegger and St. James standout. He corrals that and sends the crowd that was there into a frenzy of excitement to close out that win. But defense was bend but don't break. Offense got down, came back, and was just kind of similar to some of the storylines of Tulane's season thus far, for a team that is now kind of beating their chest a little bit more loudly that, hey, maybe we're the best football team in Louisiana.
Yeah, possibly. That's a big possibility. That could be true. Let's move on. Unless do you have anything else for this game?
No, I know we've got a tight timeline. It was a great game to go to. First one in person this season for Tulane, and I'm looking forward to some more because they're always a lot of fun to go cover. Really enjoy those guys, and they do a great job down there.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. When Troy beat down ULM 37-14, ULM doesn't score in the first or fourth. They just kind of looked outmatched. Yeah. Troy's better.
Yeah, look, the 2 Sun Belt games we're going to talk about, they ended up what we had worried about for those teams, to drop those in kind of fashions not unlike what we had forecast on Friday. So a tough weekend for the Warhawks and the Cajuns, but they've just got some things to figure out against the teams that are right now the top of the Sun Belt, or some of the top of the Sun Belt.
Yeah. We can just go kind of with both of them. ULM loses, so does UL, like you just mentioned. That Southern Miss game was 22-10. I don't think there's much else to say. These two teams just have some stuff to figure it out. I don't know if getting back on track this year is in the cards, is what I'm kind of feeling what it kind of looks like there. So
Yeah, I think they have a chance to still be competitive in this conference. These again were games against some of the teams at the top of the conference, and it's kind of for the Warhawks and Cajuns right now. It feels very week to week that they're going to battle and they're going to have a chance to win some games. But
Who do you think
they
has a better shot at getting to a bowl? ULM or UL?
are their records the same right now?
They are. UL is 2-5, 1-2 in the Sun Belt. ULM is 3-4, 1-2 in the Sun Belt.
Interesting, because I would have said the Cajuns if
I
records
know
were even.
that record is that's a big hole. They're gonna have to go on like snap off a bunch of wins in a row, which I don't know if this Cajuns team can do, especially with the quarterback situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough deal, man.
Yeah.
And what's always interesting with them in seasons like this is they'll finish against one another on Thanksgiving weekend, and so it may be an opportunity for them, or at least one of them, to be fighting and trying to get there, and the other one looking forward to playing spoiler. And there's a good chance I'll be out there Thanksgiving weekend, but it has certainly been frustrating, particularly in recent weeks for those couple of teams.
Yes, it has. Let's go on to some other frustrating things. Oh, I don't know what happened with my camera there. Kind of went all over the place. Frustrating for the Ole Miss fans. They fall to Georgia 43-35. This was a great game. It was back and forth. I think we said it was going to be a slog. It was not. It was it was a shootout to say the very least. Gunnar Stockton throws 4 TDs. Georgia looks like they're kind of coming together as well. The SEC is so good. I mean, there are just so many good teams. We can kind of bulk do this as well with a Tennessee Alabama game. Alabama looks like one of the best teams in the country now. This Tennessee team, from what they just were almost there a bunch, but just really couldn't keep up. So,
yeah.
And
that my takeaway is essentially similar with yours. So I went to the Tulane game and then posted up in Lakeview at a place called the Backyard. That is a great place to go have some food and watch some football while I waited for a high school game on Saturday night. And so I was working on some of my Tulane stuff while watching Ole Miss and Georgia wrap up and thinking, well, I don't know who's going to win this game for a stretch, but we certainly misread the type of game it was going to end up being. And
1000%.
George is able to pull it out. And also, I mean, notably for Alabama right now, who looks like one of the best teams in the country, as you mentioned, and just kind of wrapping it into some of what we were talking about with LSU. This weekend, as disappointing of a loss as it was for LSU and Brian Kelly and company, and people want to now write off the Brian Kelly era of LSU and move on and whatnot. I mean, we watched Alabama lose to Vanderbilt a year ago. We've seen teams lose games to far worse opponents than this Vanderbilt team that LSU just lost to. And I'm not making a lot of excuses for Brian Kelly. There's clearly a lot that needs to be addressed, but we've seen teams be able to shake back from tough losses and get things right get things headed in the right direction, at least under coaches, including what we're watching right now with Alabama doing great things on the football field on Saturdays after losing to that same Vandy team a year ago, losing to Florida State ugly earlier this year. And Florida State hasn't looked great in recent weeks either. Yeah. So college football, man.
Yeah. College football. What a time to be alive. You and yours, me and mine. All right. Finally, Saints go up to Chicago and lose. I think that you at least got to see what Tyler Shucks got at this point. I was at this game. Caleb didn't play great, but the Saints, the Bears defense, I just played out of their mind. Some of those interceptions, I won't put all of those interceptions directly on Spencer Rattler. Some of them were just amazing plays by the Chicago Bears defense. Dennis Allen has definitely had himself a cigar and a nice cold, tasty beverage after the game for sure. The Saints are competitive every single game, and they were in this game as well. They just couldn't really get anything going except for Chris Olave is a dude, or curse Jarvis. But yeah, it was a really fun game to watch. All the Bears fans I saw were fairly nice. No one was really a jerk, which is not been the
Well,
case
that's
times.
nice.
That's
Good
nice.
for you, Bears fans.
Yeah. I just kept being like, thank you guys for our quest for the number one pick. I appreciate you guys not being the Bears and really messing this up for us. So, but yeah, it was a cool game. I had really good seats. It was a fun game to watch. But yeah, this is it's rough. It is very, very rough.
You had a nice video of an Olave touchdown there that was, great shot, Hawks,
Yeah, it was fun.
And great tickets, Hawks.
Great tickets, great shots, Hawks. Yeah, I honestly, with this team the way it is, I think you've seen it all of Spencer Rattler that you're going to see. Tyler Shuck is not getting any younger. He's already on the wrong side of 30. So let's see what the kid does. I say that kid as the grown adult that he is, because he literally cannot be on his family's health insurance plan anymore. Not that he needed to be, but legally he cannot. So at 25, they cut you off. Yeah, I think it's time to throw in Tyler Shuck and see what he's got,
Yeah. I mean, I really have no Saints thoughts. Yeah. I didn't watch that game. I'm just,
I know we're on a hard out too. So yeah, yeah, that's what it is. Saints suck. All right. Let's get on to the best part of the day, the high school plays of the week. Let's bring them in. Oh yeah, stuff going on here.
Yeah, man, we've got some good ones this week, certainly. It is a Baton Rouge heavy contingent, and just as we lead in, want to shout out Michael Caldwell at WBRZ, John Eads at WAFB, and then, we have a North Louisiana play that we'll get to in a second as well from Alex Anderson, Daniel Brown, and those guys up at KTBS. But jumping right into it, with credit to those guys and credit to these guys on the field, we'll start with a game that I was at, actually. Jaden Miles for Catholic High Baton Rouge going to take this run and show some contact balance. This was a game that the Bears won 57-28 against reigning Division I non-select champion Central. It's a game that has become kind of circled on that District 4 5A schedule each year between two of the better teams in the state in Class 5A, and Jaden Miles is one of the best running backs in the state, certainly in his class of 2027, but in any class. Really a lot of fun to watch. That young man continue to develop into a high-profile high school player and prospect. He's someone that at a program that has a long-standing tradition of great running backs has a chance to be one of the best to come through there, and you see some of it there on the broken tackles on the way to the end zone to help put that thing away. Play number 2 from Michael Caldwell and WBRZ, Landon Johnson from Madison Prep on this 2-point conversion catch. Whoop, just one hand. Going to go ahead and take that. And they say act like you've been there before.
Wow.
They call him Manu. He's been there before. He nothing special for Landon Johnson on a Thursday night game against Port Allen. And just
my goodness. What an amazing cat. That's incredible. And the swag with it is just amazing. We love to see it.
I don't know why I just maximized my screen there and threw myself off, but one more look at Landon Johnson with the 2-point conversion catch. Shout out to not only Michael for allowing us to use that video, but Landon's dad, Thaddeus Johnson, who sent me over a couple different plays to look at. Heading on up to North Louisiana, that KTBS clip from Shreveport. Again tonight, Haynesville Jr., Latravius Brooks making a couple guys miss, breaking some tackles all the way. Right, yep, not going to get me there.
Wow.
Going to go ahead and break a few more, make half of this team miss, and find my way to the end zone. He's another 2027 prospect, as these first 3 guys have been Latravius Brooks.
Wow.
Again, I mean, contact balance off the charts here to break all these tackles and make 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 6 different guys miss, or 6 different tackles that he's able to break on his way to the end zone. Golden
number 40 just got dragged twice.
The Golden Tours remaining undefeated on the season, a unanimous number 1 team in Class 1A right now. And then wrapping it up, got some love for a big guy, the senior of the bunch, the old man of the bunch, and LSU committed left tackle typically for the East Ascension Spartans. He's played some more tight end this year. And you know what? Why don't we just throw him back there and take some snaps at quarterback? Bryson Martinez, the big man, dropping back, long touchdown pass on the money to Jeremiah Merriweather.
That's amazing.
This is an East Ascension win against Santa Ma in one of the best rivalries in the state of Louisiana, even in years like this one where the teams have dropped some games and maybe aren't at the top of the standings of that District 5, 5A. It's always a war and a lot of fun. And Bryson Martinez, I should have written down his measurables, but he's like 6'6", 300 pounds and slinging 30-yard touchdowns down the field. Had some great runs in this game as well. And that's going to be a tough one to beat. This is the one from John Eads and WAFB that I wanted to use his clip because I think at the beginning you can get a little bit more of a sense than some of the other versions of this that I saw of just how big he's an offensive lineman of an athlete Bryson is, and
That's
Bryson is a fantastic, versatile playmaker on the football field for the Spartans. He's also an all-district and it might have been all-state basketball player last year, just to continue to kind of round out some of his accolades. But 4 really good ones, 4 different plays in a lot of ways, a lot that these talented young athletes are bringing to the table on Thursdays and Fridays.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need your help to help us pick the top play of the week. Go to our Instagram, PODnas_LA, vote on which play you think is going to be the best one. We will let you know who's going to be the winner on our preview show at the end of the week. We got to get out of here. So let's do this social run up. Check out the Louisiana versus All Y'all website, LouisianaversusAllYall.com. Go to LA versus All Y'all on Twitter and Instagram. Like I just said, PODnas_LA to find us on there. And then if you're on YouTube right now, please like, share, comment, helps us out a bunch. We really appreciate you taking some of your day to spend it with us. That's all we got. PODnas.